Good morning. Let me first of all begin by expressing profound gratitude to the government of the state of Qatar for being a gracious host of this important platform, and particularly for the legendary hospitality extended to us since our arrival in Doha. But also, of course, I have to mention the commitment of the state of Qatar in effort to bring peace and security globally. I will mention my involvement in these initiatives and efforts sponsored by Qatar to try to bring peace and post-conflict reconstruction and peace building in Darfur. I also like to appreciate Mr. Ali Sufan, as well as the board and management of the Sufan Center, for again inviting me to address this year's Global Security Forum, the first in the series. I commend both the government of the state of Qatar and the Sufan Group for elevating this important forum into a global platform for articulating and seeking solutions to common challenges. The scope, nature, and geopolitical spread of the issues on the agenda of this forum prove this viewpoint. It also speaks eloquently to how common, broad, and universal the threats we are facing are. No nation can stand alone or conveniently cower from insecurity or underdevelopment. The character of these threats require a shared understanding of the connection between security, development, and sustained global cooperation. Within this framework, I believe that the topic of my remarks, which is dynamics of security and development in Africa, finds significant relevance with the broader theme of this year's forum, the imperative of balancing global cooperation and competition. From east to west, north to southern Africa regions, and from the Lake Chad Basin to the Sahel region, Africa is facing numerous threats, as all of us here know, from terrorism, violent extremism, proliferation of arms from all across sport areas of conflict into our respective countries, piracy, money laundering, financial flight, and so on. All these are threats that are really endangering and threatening Africa. In further contextualizing security and development dynamics in Africa, I will not overlook the impact of climate change on the COVID-19 pandemic on efforts not only to address the multifaceted security challenges, but also on the various endeavors by states to upscale development. Several African communities and vulnerable populations, especially around the Sahel and Lake Chad regions, face existential threats arising from climate change. This underlying link, stimulating the micro-conflicts and grievances, is often overlooked by the international partners and community generally. Evidently, the shock prompted by the COVID-19 has increased fiscal deficits in most African states, thereby creating further development constraints in countries already experiencing or prone to conflict. Moreover, the pandemic overwhelmed and revealed the fragility of health infrastructure of the continent. Collectively, these threats have adversely impacted the continent's development, agenda, and policies. As is well known, conflict and insecurity roll back years of development in Africa at a faster pace than elsewhere and more than ever before. However, despite setbacks and various security threats, governance is improving in Africa. Today, the dominant view on the continent is that security and development are closely interlinked and that one cannot be enjoyed without the other. Many African countries are already responding to the new reality The regional and global cooperation is necessary to addressing security threats, tackling energy and debt crisis, climate change, health issues, and poverty. In Nigeria, counterterrorism and counterinsurgency efforts have been shaped by policy frameworks and strategies, including the whole of government and the whole of society approaches. In this sense, hard and soft national power are combined in a complementary manner into kinetic and non-kinetic measures to achieve national security objectives. Under kinetic measures, for instance, a major response to the insurgency is the deployment of the Joint Task Force consisting of the Army, Air Force, Navy, State Security Services, and Police under unified command structures supported by multinational Joint Task Force. The non-kinetic measures prioritize development as a panacea for insecurity. The measures aim to address the root causes of disaffection, such as poverty and unemployment, that render youth vulnerable to terrorism and violent extremism, propaganda, and indoctrination. Recognizing the range and depths of the threats at various levels, the countering violent extremism strategy in Nigeria assumes a bottom-up approach, incorporates gender dimensions, and embeds conflict prevention and peace building. Regardless of persisting challenges, the strategy is yielding positive results and outcomes. It has helped to build capacities within some of the most vulnerable regions of the Northeast and forge partnership with faith groups, civil society, and local stakeholders to support de-radicalization campaign. However, of recent, we have seen quite a number of terrorist groups, about 8,000 actually in number, that have surrendered to our troops. And this has put pressure on the program that has been going, and a lot of effort is being worked out to contain this pressure. To mitigate insecurity and further stimulate socio-economic development, focus is on key initiatives such as youth and women empowerment, as well as resources allocation for small business, farmers, and pastoralists. In our fight against Boko Haram, we have also learned some very good lessons. Key lessons of the military and socio-economic dimensions have been learned since Boko Haram emerged in 2009. Frontline countries, for instance, in the fight against the terrorists, came together and established what is now popularly known as the Multinational Joint Task Force, or in abbreviation MNJTF, as well as the Regional Intelligence Fusion Unit. These two initiatives, which benefited tremendously from partner support, proved critical in degrading the terrorists and underlines the importance of regional and international cooperation in addressing the challenges that are global in nature. The US in particular, the UK, France, they have a great deal, they provided a great deal of support to these two initiatives, which are initiatives that are actually regional initiatives. We have also learned not to over-rely on foreign sources for the procurement of military hardware. Instead, we are now investing in local capacity and also strengthening reliable partnerships. One other critical lessons learned was in the unintended consequences of international cooperation in the fight against global terrorism. The defeat, for instance, of the Islamic State in Syria and Iraq by the coalition forces sent a wave of foreign terrorists and terrorist expertise and financing to the Lake Chad Basin and also, of course, generally to the Sahel. So also the use and subsequent expulsion of foreign fighters in Libya created some problems for us, and it is well known that that was actually one of the consequences was the killing of President Idriss Deby of Chad, and then we have seen also an avalanche of these foreign fighters trooping and coming into the lectured area. We are now working along with affected countries with the United Nations, especially the UN Security Council, to get to address the issue by organizing a controlled evacuation of these foreign troops from Libya. By far, the hardest lessons learned are from the use of internet-based platforms or services by terrorists, bandits, insurgents, as well as other dissident groups to spread disinformation, conspiracies, divisive narratives, mobilization of funds for criminal activities, recruitment of elements, as well as purchase of arms and ammunition. In all this, there is no quick fix for the enumerated challenges facing development and security in Africa. The Global Forum, however, provides the platform to effectively render the call for renewed cooperation and sustained global action to roll back the hostile security environment and development trends in Africa. In today's interconnected world, the problems that individual nations face have root in and consequences for other countries as well. Regrettably, inadequate and increasingly eroding multilateralism in global affairs is limiting collective efforts to deal with these threats. Response to the COVID-19 pandemic and climate change exemplify this. Rather than seek a coordinated response to combat the pandemic, countries relied on individual solutions while vaccine nationalism took precedence. Relative apathy also towards collaborative solution is also apparent in the effort to combat climate change. Let me therefore stress that multilateralism is indispensable to establishing durable security and sustainable development. It is generally believed that disproportionate attention and resources are often committed to fighting insecurity in Africa, sometimes at the peril of development initiatives. This disparity, which raises moral dangers, calls for the international community to re-evaluate the frameworks of engagement and intervention in Africa by ensuring that such measures align with local needs. Also, as a result, the international community should enhance support for non-kinetic approaches to security challenges. Across Africa, and particularly in the Sahel region, peacekeeping missions are still struggling to deliver on their mandates. To complement these efforts, conflict prevention, post-conflict reconstruction, and peace-building efforts should be given priority. Several African countries face a number of structural fragilities arising from debt burdens, which further constrain their abilities to secure international finance or unlock development funding. Some countries also face political instability from unnecessary and ill-advised actions by their leaders. And we have seen this effect repeating itself again and again, especially in the West African sub-region. The effects manifest in far-reaching varieties of security threats. As such, an agenda to secure and develop the continent will also require a sincere interrogation of some of the continent's underlying structural and macroeconomic challenges. The support and expertise that the international system can provide to societies at tipping points can make immense difference. In the same vein, Nigeria and indeed Africa will benefit from greater involvement, not the international community, but also of the Arab Gulf states in the continent's counter-terrorism efforts. In concluding, let me restate my fervent hope that the Global Security Forum can play a key role in forging an international consensus around an integrative approach to securing the world's most vulnerable regions, which is Africa, and confronting developmental challenges wherever they emerge. Such a global consensus would be meaningful if supported, by unreserved commitment and adequate resources. Indeed, we must work together to avoid conflicts, strengthen global peace and security, and reap the benefit of development. I thank you very much.